Hello friends, in this video I'll present to you the case study of startup called TinyOwl. We will try to understand why TinyOwl failed. So let's dive in. TinyOwl started in year 2014. Let's first understand how it all started. So TinyOwl was founded by 5 IIT students with a vision of creating value for all stakeholders in the restaurant and food ecosystem. So TinyOwl basically was a food delivery startup that delivered food from restaurants to your home. Through the TinyOwl app, the restaurants got benefited immensely because now they were able to reach wider audience and were able to deliver their food to wider locations. Harshvardhan Mandad was the co-founder and CEO at TinyOwl, and he was responsible for driving growth at the startup. His main job was looking after fundraising. Other responsibilities like operations, finance, marketing and technology were split among rest of its co-founders. Let's now understand some of the metrics associated with TinyOwl. So TinyOwl expanded in 50 cities and onboarded 4,000 plus restaurants. Now this is a massive scale, right? Now looking at this massive scale, huge investors like Sequoia Partners, Nexus Ventures, and Matrix Partners decided to fund the startup, and TinyOwl raised $25 million from these investors. So let's now have a look at the business model of the startup. So initially, TinyOwl was completely free for customers as well as restaurants. Why was it free, you may ask? Because TinyOwl wanted to acquire new restaurants and new customers. And this is a very common strategy, right? So after reaching a certain level, that is after onboarding 4,000 plus restaurants and having 2,000 daily orders, TinyOwl started charging commission. Yes, TinyOwl charged 10 to 20% of commission from restaurants on every order. Now let's understand that TinyOwl also tapped into one more market. That market was the homemade market. So TinyOwl launched a TinyOwl homemade app which gives you access to food from home chefs. So TinyOwl acted as a marketplace which connected home chefs and the customers. Now why did it enter into new market? Because homemade food market was a huge market as well. So TinyOwl had the right idea. They got huge funding. They had the team. They had good investors. They had everything. But why did they fail? Let's understand how it ended. So, something interesting that I want to share with you is in India, average order value of food is rupees 500. That is, out of 500 rupees, TinyOwl got only 10% to 20% of commission. So 20% of 500 is 100 rupees. So TinyOwl made 100 rupees on every order on average. Now, out of those 100 rupees, 70 rupees had to go to the delivery partner, that is the delivery agent. Now they were left with 100 minus 70, that is 30 rupees. Of this 30 rupees, TinyOwl had to pay for operational cost, for marketing, for acquiring customers, for their staff, etc. And eventually, they were not able to generate profit. Even after two rounds of funding, they were still a loss making company. And due to this, they rapidly cut down their operations in all the cities except Mumbai. So, since they were serving in 11 cities, they cut down their operation in 10 cities and operated only and only in Mumbai. Now, Harshvardhan tried to raise funds. He gave his best, right? But they were not able to find an investor who was willing to invest in their startup. And why was this? Because TinyOwl was a loss making startup. TinyOwl was burning cash like anything. So that is why no investor wanted to invest in them. Now, TinyOwl had the last option, which was to get merged with startup called Roadrunner, which was a logistics startup. And so finally, TinyOwl announced its merger with Roadrunner in 2016. So this is how the startup failed. Let's now analyze the reasons that why TinyOwl failed. So TinyOwl did the mistake of overhiring. There was a time when they had literally 1100 employees only in 1 year. Now that is like achieving massive scale but at the price of massive cash burn. They realized the mistake and fired 300 employees in September 2015. But now this was too late. This was very much late, right? Now, founders of TinyOwl had great knowledge of technology, finance, marketing, but they were not experienced about restaurant industry. They did not have idea about how this restaurant industry works, and so were not able to scale effectively. This was the second mistake. The third mistake was that when they started, their initial focus was on product and tech, which is absolutely correct. But after scaling, their focus should have shifted to operations. But that did not happen. This was the third reason why Tiny Owl failed. Now, there are some really good learnings that I want to give you. But before that, I want to also show you what founder of Tiny Owl said and one more reason that why they failed. So Tiny Owl never prioritized metrics. Yes, co-founders at Tiny Owl never prioritized metrics. Now, what is metrics? Now, metrics are some quantities, some parameters that you need to measure, and they are different for every startup. So they did not prioritize metrics, which led them to do over hiring. Now, how is that? So, one of the co founders, Saurabh Goyal of TinyOwl, said this. Read this carefully. He said that when they were scaling their delivery fleet, they had 1,000 delivery boys. But the kind of scale they had, the 1,000 delivery boys were not needed. So, yes, that is what his co founder said. They clearly admitted their mistake, that they did the mistake of overhiring. And due to this, unit economics took a hit. I will explain you unit economics at the second module, the third module, which we have in this course. So basically, unit economics in short is that the amount of profit or loss that you are generating on every order. Since they did the mistake of overhiring, the profit that they earned from every order was completely destroyed. So it's really important for a startup to figure out what are their core metrics that you want to improve first, and then only go for scale. So TinyOwl did the mistake of going for scale earlier without prioritizing metrics. So this was their main mistake. Now there are some learnings that I want to share with you. So, the first learning obviously is that understand the type of startup you are running and figure out what metrics you need to focus on. For example, in case of e-commerce business, you need to focus on metrics like average order value, average delivery time, return rate, etc. So analyze what industry you operate in, analyze what are the important metrics related to that industry, and analyze that are you heading towards achieving those metrics properly or not. The second mistake and the second learning that I want to give you is about related to scaling your company. Okay, so understand this. Scaling your company should happen as per your runway period. So when TinyOwl had funding of 20 crore, they were burning 4 crore every month, which means that the startup could survive only for 5 months and would run out of funds in 5 months, and so would need funds again. So it is very important for you to calculate your runaway period. That is the amount of time you are going to survive as per the funds you have. So first calculate how much time it will take for you to be profitable and see if you have funds to survive for that much time. If you are just going to depend on investors' money and be a loss making company again and again and go for fundraising again and again, there is absolutely no sense of starting up. In fact, in coming years, the loss making companies will not get funding. This is going to be very clear, right? So the third learning that I'm going to give you is that most startups that lay off their employees hired them by projecting the rate at which they will expand their business. Again, a very important point. As the co-founder of TinyOwl said that they scaled their company and did the mistake of overhiring by projecting the rate at which their businesses will expand. Why is this a mistake? This is very bad strategy. You should always hire half the people you think you will need and see how your company functions. If there is a need for more people, you can always hire more, right? So don't hire people all at once. The idea is to hire gradually instead of hiring lots of people all at once. Most startups have failed due to this problem. They did the mistake of overhiring to achieve hyper growth, to achieve hyper scale, and this led to massive cash burn. So don't do this mistake, guys. So these are the key learnings that I wanted to give in this video. Thank you.